So we're talking about these women in the line of Jesus we've been talking about. And we finish that series today with the last one mentioned in Matthew's genealogy, the mother of Jesus, Mary. Poor Mary. You know, Mary, I feel like Mary has become like an image in a culture war that's gone on for hundreds of years, you know. One camp wants to worship her, and the other wants to say, just Mary, right? Like, I feel like, well, what about her? Who is she? Who was she? What was her experience of life and lighting? Who was Mary? And so I thought this is also difficult because all the other ladies that we've talked about here have gotten, you know, a chapter or two in the Bible sort of telling their story. And Mary, she's got pieces of her story spread out over a good chunk. And so I almost feel like we're not going to give her the attention that she is due because there's so much to talk about and who she was. And so I thought, how do we do this? How can we look at who Mary was and understand her the best we can? And so I decided to look. I chose this completely arbitrarily, up to me. I chose three what I think of as sort of crucial moments in her life and the way they're reported in the Gospels. And I wanted to look at them so that maybe we can get an overall picture of who she was and what she experienced. So that's what I'm going to do. So the first sort of crucial moment is in Luke chapter 1, 26 through 38. I didn't put this on the screen. You might have a device or a tablet, Luke 1. You can, you know, depending on how you use it. I like the ESV app. I know I'm terrible. So many people use YouVersion. ESV is less complicated. It just gives me the words on the Bible. That's what all I want to see. Anyway, whatever app you use. Luke chapter 1, 26 through 38 says this. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed, that means engaged, in fancy words, to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her and said, "Greetings, O favored one, the Lord is with you." Can you just imagine what that might feel like? And just for a minute, the Lord is with you. Like an angel shows up and says that. It would be a little overwhelming. Well, she was greatly troubled. Kind of interesting. She was also greatly troubled and tried to discern what's going on here. Why are you? And the angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God, and behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give to him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever." That's what we just sang. "And of his kingdom there will be no end." I mean, that's a big calling on her life, to bear the Son of God, the King. I mean, we've already seen one king's mother, right, Bathsheba. That was heavy in many ways for her. Certainly, this is a heavy call that she's been given. And Mary said, "Hang on, how will this be since I'm a virgin?" I love that she asks questions. I love that she's like, hang on, wait a minute. In fact, it's interesting because throughout the Bible, when people encounter a word from the Lord in various ways, they say, "Oh, wait a minute, wait. That's the response. If your response is ever, all righty, be very afraid." The first human response, I think, to God's call on our lives is very likely, I don't know about that. I do tell people that sometimes when I ask people to consider serving around here. They go, I'm like, well, I'm just me, but maybe that's a call that God has on you, and that's how you're responding, in which case you should do it. And when they say, "Yeah, baby, I'm in," I'm like, ooh, maybe that's wrong. Because our first response ought to be, hang on, how will this be? And then she says, "Since I am a virgin." And the angel explains, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. The child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God." And then he says, look, your relative Elizabeth, in her old age, has conceived a son. It's been 6 months. He points to something else significant, almost impossible, that God has done, which for some of us, we need to hear that, because when we're called into something, when God has a calling on us, when there's something He wants us to do, usually we can look and see something else He's done, which emboldens us, right? Gives us a little bit more faith and trust that He actually knows what He's doing when He's calling us into this. And He says, so look, nothing is impossible with God. Mary said, look here. It says behold in the ESV. I like that. Look here. Okay, look, I'm the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. Let it be what you have said. She has a very different... This is Mary, at this point, was probably 12 or 13 years old. We think often of Mary being some mature woman, that she wasn't. She was just at the peak, maybe, of adolescence. And she's getting this call on her life to first of all, be pregnant, which is a huge, difficult thing in her life at this point in time in history. And, you know, she's engaged to this guy, and we know the story if you've kind of read other places. At one point, Joseph was like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna, and then he gets a visit from an angel and explains, no, she hasn't been cheating. That's not the deal. Marry her and raise this kid. So, but she doesn't know any of that. She just knows she's going to have a baby, virgin, unwed, which is a big deal. Teenager, preteen possibly, right? And that's a heavy burden for her to carry. And then, not only that, this baby is going to be the Holy One, the Son of God, and sit on the throne of David over Israel. This is significant stuff that she's being told. And she says, let it be. Let it be like you said. I am the servant of God. She humbly leans into her difficult calling. What sort of difficult callings may we have in the room? Right, what are the things that we might wrestle with? What has God called us to? That doesn't mean calling. I use that word. The word vocation actually comes from the same root as vocal. I'm coming down here a little bit. I just want to get out of the light. The word calling comes from the same place as the word vocal. It's to be called, right? Vocation is where we get that. And so when I think about it, it might be a career path, right? It might be a career path of being a minister or teacher. That's a tough one sometimes, especially if kids maybe don't want to learn. We've probably got a lot of other difficult callings. Doctor, what about that? That's tough at times because you want to heal, and so often you maybe encounter death even, right? That's not. So there are a lot of difficult things that we might be called into. Mom. We're talking about Mary. What about a mom? That's a difficult calling. What's your attitude towards your difficult calling? Are you fighting it? Maybe it's just merely to walk through a season of life that's just really hard. God calls us into these things sometimes for His glory and for the good of the world, which is what He's called Mary into this for. This difficult season and this difficult calling to be this mother who will ultimately bless the world. That's her calling, and she says, I'm the servant of the Lord. What's your attitude? Are we praying against it? Fighting against it? Wishing it away? Avoiding it? Or are we willing to be like Mary and say, let it be. Let it be to me, as you've said. And to navigate it, to walk through it, to lean into it with trust. With trust, that's what she does. I'm the servant of the Lord. She's trusting in God. No matter how hard this may get, she is trusting. I think there's something for us in that. as we think about our difficult callings. Second scene I want to look at comes a few years later. It is in Luke chapter 2, starting in verse 41. It says, now his parents, Jesus, his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the Feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up according to custom. When the feast was ended, as they were returning, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. They didn't have a concept of helicopter parenting, right? Like we hear this story and we're like, how could that possibly happen? The boy, 12-year-old boy, stays behind while the family leaves, but you'll see they start looking for him with the friends and the relatives and all the other people and acquaintances that are on this trip together, because it was kind of common. The kids would just kind of work their way in the crowd. Somebody's looking after them, right? And they just all went back and they just assumed Jesus was with them. But he didn't. He stayed. And after 3 days, they went back to Jerusalem. And after 3 days, has anybody ever lost a kid in the mall for like 3 minutes? Right? It's freaky. You know, or you don't know where they're not answering their phone, and it's starting to snow, and you don't know, right? We start to worry after 3 days. Their son was missing for 3 days. That's police report level. Like, that's Amber Alert, right? They found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Let me just pause. This isn't about Mary, okay? But I want us to learn from Jesus so badly, especially right now. We are about to have another election cycle, okay? 12-year-old Jesus. 12-year-old. Do you know what it's like to be around a teenager? They know everything, right? 12-year-old Jesus models to us listening and asking questions. That's what the wisdom of a 12-year-old Jesus can do. So you remember, when this new election cycle comes or whatever comes, we are so eager to tell people what we know. Tell people how right we are. Explain what other people need to know about the whatever, tax policies and vaccinations and whatever. We just want everybody else to know what we know. God is listening and asking questions. That's all I want to say, because I think we need to hear that. So he goes on. That's where they find him, sitting among the teachers. And all who heard were amazed at his understanding. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said, "Why have you treated us like this?" She's pretty upset. Again, if you've lost that kid for those 3 minutes, you know what that feels like. For her, it was 3 days. She's like, "What have you done? We've been looking for you in distress. We have been worried sick about you. Where have you been?" I've had this conversation. And he said, "Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know I'd be in my Father's house?" And they didn't understand. They were confused. And he went down and came to Nazareth and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up these things in her heart. This is the second time that Luke tells us. The first time was when the shepherds came to visit, and he's in the manger, and the shepherds come to see and to worship this baby Jesus. And it says then that she treasured these things up in her heart. She does the same thing here. She's treasuring this in her heart. I think she's holding on to what is good and beautiful, even in her difficult calling. Even what she knows she's about to endure, even she knows what she's already gone through, and she's treasuring, she's storing up the beautiful moments. And I think there's something there for us. Because the more, maybe it's the longer, I don't know, the longer I live, I am finding that the hard things that we navigate, the difficult stuff that we go through, even in it, even at the same moment, there's also really beautiful things that become a part of it. You know, whatever those hard things, I was having a conversation recently with people doing helping work, counseling type of stuff, right? And it's so hard. I get it, because you're trying to help people and you want to see people grow, and sometimes they're just not responding. Teachers, can you relate to that? Right? Yeah, it's hard. You just feel like you're wasting your time. Parents, I know it feels like that sometimes. You just, I don't know what to do with this kid, right? Or whatever, right? Whatever. Every calling has these areas, these things. But even in the midst of it, there's that one kid, that one student 10 years ago maybe, who you saw the light bulb come on for, right? Or that one person who you absolutely cured their cancer. There's the moment that your kid says, I'm sorry. As hard as it is, there are good and beautiful moments inside of every difficult calling, everything we've got to navigate. There are times when we get to see glimpses, if only glimpses, of God's grace shining through the darkest moments. When you think about the difficult things, maybe the calling, maybe it's a season of life, the difficult things that we're called to go through and endure, what are some of those good and beautiful moments? See growth happen. That's certainly something I see. Freedom. There are good and beautiful things in every difficult calling. There were for Mary. Treasure. Treasure those up in our hearts. The third crucial moment, a little later, it's in John chapter 19. Flip there. Start in verse 23. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his garments and divided them into 4 parts, 1 part for each soldier. Also his tunic, but the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. I wonder who wove that. We don't know. But you got to wonder who wove that tunic. So they said to one another, let us not tear it. Don't rip it up. Cast lots to see who gets to take it home. The soldiers did these things. But standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his aunt and another friend, Mary Magdalene. And Jesus saw his mother and disciple whom he loved standing nearby. He said to his mother, Woman, behold your son. Then he said to the disciple, Behold your mother. And from that hour, the disciple took her to his own home. I just imagine Mary, who's raised this boy, now this man, standing there. Probably, I don't know. It's pure conjecture. But very likely she wove that tunic, and she's standing there watching him. And by the way, he's naked. We don't have that in our portrayals usually, in our paintings. But Jesus would have been naked up there. It's just shame. That's the point. Part of the point of crucifixion is the shame of it all. And she's standing there watching this happen to her boy. And possibly she made the tunic, right, that they're gambling over here. And she's seeing all of that happen as this cruel world is just breaking her heart. I can't imagine. And I don't know. First of all, I'm not a mom. And that's a big deal. But crucifixion, I don't know if any of us can fully, even us moms can understand that kind of trauma that we have to watch our boys go through. I just can't even. You imagine, what that might, I don't think we talk enough about what Mary must have felt when she watched the brutality of our fallen world tear into her son's flesh. separate his joints, because that's what crucifixion does. The mockery and the shame. And somehow, even in the midst of that, I think she is holding on to those beautiful moments. She's remembering those shepherds who came to worship. She's remembering the wisdom of her 12-year-old boy. She's treasuring these things in her heart. And then, at the same time that this is happening, and this is what I think is just so powerful, as the world is breaking her heart, and as death and destruction is having its way, her son, her God, her hero, is actually meeting her needs. First of all, in the act of paying for her sins, her God is carrying her. And we've talked about the situation of women in this era. He is meeting her physical needs. He says, woman, this is your son. Son, that's your mother. The point is, take care of her. There's no Social Security. There's no Medicaid, Medicare. They didn't have that stuff. She was going to be out in the cold, and he ensures that she is cared for. God is meeting every need of this woman, even as she's hurting, even as she's facing this. Because he can't merely take it away, right? The thing he could do, the thing she would have loved in that moment would have been for him to call on the legion of angels and come down off the cross. The thing she would have wanted in that moment is the same thing the devil wanted in that moment. It's true. She wanted to avoid the pain that she had to go through. But Jesus knew it was the way to get us where we actually want to go. He's making something new. He's creating something new. And it takes this hard road in order to get us there. But that's what he's building. And even as we navigate it, even as she did, even as she stood at the foot of the cross, his grace met her needs. Even right there. He is with us too when we navigate these difficult things. When we walk through the hard stuff, he is with us just like he was for his mama. Where does the world break your heart? Times it does, all of us. Maybe it's just loneliness. Maybe it's other people's animosity, venom, wickedness. Where does it hurt? Maybe you're just bored. There's a lot of that actually going around. Bored young men. So we don't have a lot of meaning, purpose, but maybe that's where it's breaking your heart. Jesus is with us even in the hardest parts of it. We just have to believe that. We have to hold on to that. We have to hope for that he will meet us in those painful moments. Finally, I want to show you one other thing. I want to show you this painting. I think it's in there. There it is. I love this painting. You ever seen this before? Probably a lot. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just love it because it's called Mary Consoles Eve. And you can see it in the picture, right? Eve, the first curse is shame. They were naked and they were ashamed. That's the first part of the curse after creation, when she eats the fruit, when her and her husband choose their own way. The first part of the curse is to feel shamed. And I love how Mary's hand is on her face, lifting her face, giving her hope. Because that's not the end of the story. The shame isn't. And then the second part of the curse for women, for mothers, was pain in childbirth. And I have always said that goes far beyond labor. Moms, can I get an amen? It goes far beyond the moment of labor. Pain in childbirth, I don't think for moms ever stops. Because you're watching these kids who you were physically built to just hold. go out and be wounded and hurt by a cruel world and make choices that maybe you wouldn't make too. And that's also hard, right? Because we all are a little bit of control freaks, right? Never ends. There's pain in childbirth and there's shame. And then you see the snake? He's just tangling up Eve. Eve and all her descendants are caught in the serpent's snare. The snare of shame. The snare of pain. The snare of toil. We're just trapped in it. And you see where Eve's foot is. Mary's foot. It's on the head of the serpent. Like her son who was promised to Eve. You know, Eve named her first kid, I have done it. Because she was told, you're going to bear a son who's going to crush the head of the serpent. And her first thing she said, she named this kid, I have done it. And then her second kid, she named good for me or something like that. I forget the exact Hebrew. But it was something like that. And then one of them murdered the other. And she named her next son Abel. God will do what God's going to do. And she lived, and all of her descendants lived with the serpent wrapped around them, with the pain and with the shame. And then Eve comes. Mary comes, bearing, can't even get their name straight. There's so much in my mind the same. Mary comes, and finally, she's crushing the head of the serpent, destroying what is painful, what is broken, lifting up the head that is hung down in shame. That's what Christmas is. It's a consolation of all the hurts and all of the pains that we feel. And it is a promise that it's not ending here either, but it's going to continue to grow. And all that is broken in us and all that is broken around us will finally and fully be made whole. And there's great hope in that. And there's great promise in that. And even as we learn from Mary, even as we navigate this, and even as we hurt, we can be assured that our shame will be taken, that the hold the serpent has on us will die, and that ultimately all of our pains and all of our hurts, number one, in the midst of them, God is with us. And number two, they will be redeemed. There's a line in a poem that just came to mind. If all the death that ever was, if you put it in a cup, it'll barely fill it. Because that's the world that Jesus is making. He's already started making it. And we get to live in it as it continues to expand. That is what Christmas is. It's an announcement of war against everything that hurts. Let me pray for us. Jesus, I thank you that you are making all things new. Would you help me believe it? Help us believe that you are with us just as you were with Mary, even as you hurt, even as she hurt. You cared for her even then. Help us feel your care for us as we maybe are navigating difficult things. Help us remember that Christmas is really about breaking in, about a destruction of a world order of death and chaos, and you have attacked it. Will you please come quickly and end it? And in the meantime, help us to know that you are with us. It's in your name we pray. Amen.